Hey everybody, Steve Biederman, and it is July 21st. Great to talk to you today. I have to tell you, I've been really looking forward to this particular topic. Come on, most people don't want to talk about failure, but I think it's such an integral piece. And I don't see in everything I'm looking at and reading, even talking to people, I'm not getting a sense that people are truly focusing on the back end of what it really takes to build a business and that emotional dynamic and that actual dynamic that goes on. Yes, we coin terms like, failure leads to success, and we coin a lot of things, and sometimes we put those statements up on the wall and we look at them a lot, and they help us in hard times. But it's like anything. Before we face something hard, it's just a theory to us. We can't feel it. We can't understand the depth of tragic feelings and outcomes that may come out of those moments until you're living it. But today I wanted to kind of share with you the only way I know how, which is some of my own experiences and maybe some of other people's experiences. I literally could talk about this for days. I have 15 or 20 minutes. I hope I don't go over for you, and I hope you do stay to listen, because if you have an interest in building a business, or if you are building a business, I think this is an important piece to take in and do your best to embrace it, and on some level, feel it a little bit, because I absolutely believe something like this is going to happen to you. All right. Well, look, I got into business not because I was looking to run a company. I actually never imagined myself as a CEO or a founder or anything like that. I was a consultant, and I ended up kind of taking over a business. And it just kind of happened. But remember, for me to take over that business required the first people that owned that business to fail. And when they hit a very tough patch, which was frankly their first really tough patch, they abandoned it. They walked away from it. And there are statistics out there that not many businesses succeed over 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years. And it's because of that. It's because I don't think people are often prepared for what really happens on the bad days. On good days, which are the days leading up to building a business and deciding to do a business, we're so enthusiastic. Even when we tell ourselves we're being realistic and looking at the worst case scenario, it doesn't necessarily happen that way. And we can't exactly be prepared for it. So the truth of the matter is that we hit those moments, and just like the people that started the business that I ended up taking over, they walk away because it's too hard. And by the way, it's not only just hard for you, it's hard for people around you, in your family, people that have helped you, that you don't know what to do with that. And you're letting so many layers of people down because all you've been doing is being relatively, if not fully, optimistic, that essentially sometimes it's just easier to run away. For me, I just don't have that in my DNA. And I can't say it's a choice that you don't run away or you stay with a business in bad times. I like to think of it as it's either in your DNA or not, to be able to absorb, and somehow look at it as live to fight another day. When I took over a business that, as I say, I was an accidental CEO, there were no customers that were paying any money. And there was over $1 million of debt. So essentially, I took something on without any money whatsoever. And it was really hard. And no matter what I tried to do, it didn't exactly work really well. I am going to tell you a couple things that happened where I faced just disaster. And in that disaster, somehow came out the other side of it. And by the way, although it will sound like a Steve story, it's probably many of your stories. I faced a time where I did this 11 different times, actually, where I could not make payroll. And so what do you do when you're leading up for 2 weeks to payroll and nothing is in your bank account and you don't know what to do about it exactly, and you keep trying different things? And by the way, you have people that you have to pay, and you have customers that you have to service, and you have no money. Well, you do some of the logical things that are set up in business. You go try to factor your receipts. You try to borrow money. You try to sleep at night instead of staying up worrying about it. I mean, a lot of things happen, but one day goes to the next day and you're getting closer and closer to that payroll, and it's not happening. So, what do you do? Well, one of the things that I ended up having to face, I had a moment in time where I needed $160,000 for payroll. And I had nothing. But I did have a salesman tell me that they were going to close a deal. And in our business at that time, the deposit, which was 50% of the deal, this was a large deal for us, was paid upon signing of the contract. The only thing I had left was to count on getting this deal done in time. I had nothing else. I had nothing else going. And I felt like if I missed my payroll, my business was over. And I had customers I was going to let down. I had employees I was going to let down. But more than let down, I may have killed a few businesses in the process and killed a few people in their relationships and in their trust and in their own lives. So it was really worrying me. We got to 3 days before payroll, and I really was hoping to have this contract signed, and it didn't get signed. And the salesman came in and said, "You know what? I'm sorry, Steve, but they've decided to go in a different direction." I mean, I was like dead. It was like somebody just threw a hand grenade at me. So, and by the way, that feeling of somebody just throwing a hand grenade at you, everybody walking out of an office and you sitting there and going, "I have no answers," that happens. Get ready. It does happen. Maybe not this way, but it does happen. I knew nothing else to do. So I took one of my credit cards that still had a little credit on it because I knew nothing else to do. So I just did the next thing I could think of to do. And I flew out, in this case, to California. I think it was LA, to see these people. And I had no choice but to try to convince them to do this deal. And I flew out there, and they didn't know I was coming. I didn't want them to tell me over the phone, "Don't come." And I showed up, and I called them from the airport, and I asked them, I said, "I'm in town. I just want to stop by your office. What's your address? Where are you?" Whatever I was saying. And they said, I was told that they were at a board meeting 3-hour drive away out in the desert somewhere. I mean, another shot to the gut. I didn't know what to do. I somehow found a way to get that address of where they were from the people answering the phone, who were not happy about it. And I drove out all the way there. And when I got there, I went into this place and I said, I'm here. I know there's a board meeting going on. And one thing led to another. I don't remember all of the details, but I begged myself into this board meeting. In the middle of it, I broke into the board meeting. And I told them why I was there. And they were very negative to me. And they were telling me that they'd already made a decision and in fact had signed a contract already with the other company. Another shot to the gut. Nonetheless, I did the next thing I could think of to do, and I began to talk. I felt like this. Everything is off. Nothing is working. I have absolutely assurance that everything breaks if I don't do anything else. So I'm going to do something else. And that's always been a driver for me. If I have nothing left to do and I can't do anything else, I'm going to do something else. And no matter how I feel, no matter how nauseated it might make me, no matter how demoralized I am, I think that's a DNA thing. I'm not sure, but I think so, because I've seen many other people just not be able to do it. And I get it. I totally get it. I'm always on the edge of not being able to do it too. So I somehow continued to talk. I remember now, I walked out of the meeting and the head of the company was talking to me, and he said, look, Steve, we really did like your product, but you know, come on. The truth is that we went with the company that has the long history and they're financially secure. And, you know, we've looked at your history and you're not secure. I said, did you like us? He said, we liked you better, but we're scared of you. And I said, but I've been thinking about that and I have some ideas about how to address it. Can I talk to you about it, please? Well, Steve, I don't have time. I have to get back in. Well, let me just take 5 minutes. And I kept finding a few extra minutes, and I told him of an idea of how I would give them the software and give them a contract with the developers of the software to take care of it if anything failed. I don't know. I made it up as I went. And somewhere along the line, he said, okay, well, let me go tell the board. And as he walked in the door to tell the board, he didn't give me a positive. I walked in right behind him. And I said, you know, we've been talking, blah, blah, blah. And I just took over the meeting. I completely took over the meeting. And I handled every objection they had. They were frustrated that I was there. But eventually, I know this sounds crazy, somehow I got them to the point over the next hours, against their will, that they said to me, okay, let us think about it. And I said, but look, you can't think about it because I need the money now. They said, well, that's why we don't want to work with you. And I said, I understand that, but you like us better. And so be a part of our success. And if you can just give me your agreement to do this and give me your check, I promise you, these are the things that we're going to do. I happen to have had the developer of the product who was in California. And I said, I'm going to bring him here. And by the way, hey, Nick, if you're listening and you remember this story, I'm going to bring him here and I'm going to let him stay here with you from now until this thing gets implemented over the next couple months. He's agreed to do it. That's how committed we are to doing this. It's not that we can't survive, but we're in one of those moments. And come on, guys, you must have been in those moments yourself. This is your opportunity to be a part of our success, and I convinced them to do it. Somehow, they gave me their check. Somehow, I survived that moment. By the way, we did a great job, and inevitably, we built this huge worldwide global company. And I had 11 different stories of different magnitude similar to that, where at the last minute it happened. And I want you to hear that, because something like that may happen to you, because all of the good things you read in the positive stuff that comes out, like you'll see on LinkedIn, and all the good vibes, and if you do the right things, good things will happen to you, or pay me X amount of money and I guarantee you success. I don't care. I've never seen but a handful of companies that haven't faced these demoralizing, absolutely demoralizing moments. I had somebody come to my office after I was successful and try to take my business from me and sue me. And they sued me because they felt I couldn't defend myself, not that they were right, but because I didn't have the means to be able to defend myself. And I had to find out how to solve that. And you find out how to solve things while you're trying to run your business in a positive format for your family, for your employees, and for your customers, of course. You know, there are stories after stories, and you remind yourself of those stories. And at the same time, when you get through those, you have to examine yourself, and you can't just ignore those moments. You have to use those moments to say, why the heck am I in this situation? Why does this keep happening? What is my responsibility to find a better way out? And I'm here to tell you that growth alone doesn't pull it off. You cannot grow yourself generally. Some of you have, but mostly you cannot grow yourself to success if you're in debt. You have to deal with the debt. And finding a way on bad days or good days to quantify the problems you have in your business and segregate them from the rest of what you're doing is a key element of how to go from failure to success and not abandon your ship. Listen, there are lottery wins, as what I call them, in business, where somebody starts a business, they've got an idea, it begins to work, they're turning cash. They may not even know how to run a business, but they're turning cash, and they somehow find a way or muddle themselves through it without ever having a negative cash moment. It happens. And then they're successful. But rarely does that happen. Mostly, this is what happens. Maybe not to the degree that I said, but this kind of thing happens. And I'll tell you one last story, just so you know the depth of what can happen and you can still get past it. As I'm rushing around trying to pay 10 cents of the dollar of my bills and keep myself afloat while believing that if I make enough sales, I'll solve my problem, and it kept going like this, I stopped paying the IRS payroll tax. And by the way, it's very, very easy to do something where somebody in that moment, and you're negative cash and they're not looking over your shoulder in that moment, and you do it once, you do it twice, you continue to do it. Interestingly, I began again to do my payroll tax once I got into a better situation, but I had built up a $400,000 debt to the IRS. But my business by this time was starting to move forward. Not great, but we were feeling successful. And you know what? I was paying my payroll tax, and I kind of had ignored these notices I was getting. And then one day, in my office appeared an IRS agent, and they had this orange thing, an orange lock in those days. And they walked in and they said they're going to close my business because I owe them $400,000. Now, our business is starting to move. We're now having really hundreds of customers. We have a lot of employees, probably at that time 90 or 100. We have a beautiful office, and we owe all this chunk of money. To the IRS, we were dirtballs, okay? Not we, me, okay? So this is the moment we're in, and we're going to lose our business in that second as we're in there. What do I have to do? I have to explain, I have to talk. I can't just say, yeah, go put that on. By the way, people do. People think that because of the authority of somebody else that you kind of got to acquiesce to them. But in my case, I said, look, we are successful now. We're in business. I can pay you. I cannot pay you immediately. I can pay you on these terms. I've been thinking about it. And she said, no, we don't buy that. I said, but I am current now, and I've been current for the last 8 months or something. She said, well, that's great, but this is a lot of money, and I'm sorry, I don't really have a choice. I said, can you please just give me today? Let me have today to see if there's any solution. She said, no, I need to do it now. I said, but what do you have to lose? I said, you lose one day, and I have one day that I may be able to give you $400,000. She said, you told me you can't. I said, well, give me the day. Just give me the day. I know people. I have to think. Obviously, I'm in crisis, and I just need a little time to settle down. And somehow I convinced her to leave without putting it on. Inevitably, what I ended up doing was I looked up that day an agent from the tax services of the IRS that was in a different business by that time, and asked them, tell me the dynamic of how this works. And he said to me, there are 5 ways agents get these things off of their desk, and that's all they care about, is getting it off their desk, one of these 5 ways. One is shutting you down. That doesn't bother them. It improves their lot if they can collect it, but they also if they try to collect and don't, that's now a ding against them too. So they just have these 5 ways. So I found out what these 5 ways were. I came up with a payment plan. I realized that if I made daily payments, maybe I could hold them off. And I had to figure out what I could afford daily. And I came up with, I think it was $900 a day, something like that. And 5 days a week, not 7 days a week. And I came up with this plan, and I started it, and I had $10,000, and I drove over the next morning to the IRS office, and I found out I couldn't go into their offices, but they set me in a little cubicle, and the agent came out, and I said, okay, here's my plan. Here's what I'm going to do. I will stay current. And she goes, no. She said, I can't take daily payments. We don't have the means to accept daily payments. I said, but I'm doing that to show you my good faith, because if I agree to make monthly payments, I don't believe I'm going to do it. I just don't believe I have the discipline to do that. And a month from now, you're going to close me down. At that point, I realized that she was talking to me about the plan, not about shutting me down. It gave me confidence, and I worked through it, and I ended up getting her to agree to daily payments anyway. And I said, every single day, I will drop a cashier's check at your window here. If I ever miss one day, you can close me down. And so all you get is upside. All you get is upside. Every day you get more of my money that I owe you. Every single day. And that has to be on some level of success. And I told her I knew there were 5 ways that she found success. She laughed at that. And close me down when you want, but a week from now, you'll have that much more money than you had today. So I found a way, resiliently, I found a way to do it. And by the way, when I finished paying that off, she came down, which she never did, because you can't really get all the way into these offices. She came down with a Polaroid camera and a couple other people with the last check I had, and I held it up. They all gathered around me, and somebody took a Polaroid, 2 of them, one for me and one for them, because they wanted to put it on the wall, because they said nobody had ever done that before in that way, and convince them to keep them open in that type of a moment with that type of a deal. Is that a success? No, it's a failure. It's a failure that I got there in the first place, and I do not recommend it to anybody. I've never missed a payment since. I don't think those are the things you want to do in your business, but you must examine afterwards why you got yourself into it. Don't blame other people. It's you. Why did you get into it? And if you got into it, how can you stop it? And then figure out the pathway to get over it. Usually it's not black and white. It's how do I stop it? And then What is my progressive path to get past it while changing my behavior to behave better and learn better how to run my business? And listen, I'm sorry that I'm this guy that I think people generally respect is telling you a little bit about the dirty side of a background that it took over many years to get to this place. But that's the reality of it, okay? The reality of it is it's not pretty on the back end. There are horrible situations that you probably will face. And you have to own it. You have to solve it. If you can't solve it with that idea, you have to solve it with another idea. And you have to run parallel paths to stay positive in your business at the same time to keep that business moving forward. But understand the key to getting out of your problems is sales, but it's not just sales. You can't just sell yourself out of a problem. You have to learn the dynamic of running your business on the bad days, and then learn how to have less bad days, learn how to make better decisions, how to be definitive about what you're going to do, match those decisions against exactly what you know is the right thing to do. When you don't do the right thing, don't ignore it like I did with the IRS, and face it and compartmentalize it and always stay focused on your business. So if you can do all of that, yeah, growth can take you to where you want to go, but you're gonna face those moments. Listen, I go on and on and on, and I don't want to demoralize you. You can pull this off. For me, I think it's just in my DNA. I don't know how to stop. It's a quirky thing. It's probably a OCD thing, but all of you can do it. And I'm sure no matter what your DNA is, you can do it too. But don't get into business unless you're winning the lottery. Don't get into business if you can't understand how deep it can get. So with that, I'm going to look forward to talking to you in a couple of weeks. I hope, though, even when you hear the bad, this inspires you to go do the good. And listen, you take care and enjoy your summer. And I hope it's not too hot where you're living. You take care. Bye-bye.